In the course of one's life, a handful of people will fundamentally reshape the way in which you view the political spectrum. Perhaps you'll read some Orwell, Ayn Rand, Chomsky, or Rothbard, and you'll begin to see things quite differently than you had before. During certain election cycles, a politician can do that for you as well. Certainly Ron Paul had that effect on millions of people in 2008. Ross Perot had done the same thing in '92. And between Paul and Perot, there was Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader challenged the mainstream political narrative when he received nearly 3 million votes in 2000. And for that crime, he was punished. The man who once hosted Saturday Night Live was ostracized and demonized by the corporate intelligentsia. Traitors like Michael Moore rebuked him, and the Democratic Party machine did everything they could to make him seem uncool. I recently had come across Nader again at a book signing in Canton, Connecticut. I needed to sit down with him in person, one-on-one. And so, on Earth Day, I found Ralph Nader at Northwestern Connecticut Community College in his hometown of Winsted. And kindly, he spared a few minutes to have this conversation.
Well, Mr. Nader, it really is an honor to sit down with you, especially on Earth Day, by the way. It's great to be able to speak with you now. You were actually the first person who I ever voted for president, so it's been an honor, and I've been following you for quite some time. But you've been politically active for quite some time as a consumer advocate and organizing against corporations and abuses of power.
Yeah.
So my first question would be, as somebody who's been involved in politics and in economics, I guess I'd say too, for quite some time, who would you say is winning the battle between people and corporations?
Well, in recent years, since corporations were thrown on the defensive in the 60s and 80s and early 70s, when we had got these laws through, the air, water pollution law, auto safety law, OSHA, they counterattacked in the mid-70s. And they've been winning far more than they've been losing. And we have now got a republic that's under the boot of global corporations. Wall Street controls Washington. Money in politics has reached an all-time high, and they've broken the power of the labor unions, and they've discouraged a lot of other civic institutions. So it's time to, as Bernie Sanders put it, it's time to have the people rise up and take over. They're the only ones mentioned in the Constitution. It's we the people, it's not we the corporation, it's not we the Congress, it's we the people. And we shouldn't give all that power that we're given under the Constitution to these senators and representatives without controlling them and summoning them back to our own town meetings and holding them accountable and sending them back with their instructions as to what kind of future country we want.
So how would the people actually summon back their representatives? Because it seems like the politicians go out, they spend quite a great deal of time meeting people during an election, but then they go off to Washington and they pretty much ignore people until the next election cycle.
It's very easy to do. It never takes more than 1% of the people organized in each congressional district. If they represent change that is supported by a majority of the people, and there's a lot of change, so a full Medicare for all, higher minimum wage, cracking down on corporate crime against workers, consumers, the environment, criminal justice reform, clean elections. I mean, all have left-right support for those things. Breaking up the banks in New York, the big ones, 90% it comes in. So there is this hidden left-right alliance in terms of public opinion polls that needs to go operational, needs to go into press conferences, into summoning members of Congress to their own town meetings. And I've written a formal summons that people can fill in the blanks in my new little paperback called Breaking Through Power. It's easier than we think. Remember, it's easier than we think. Go through American history. The biggest changes never involved more than 1% of the people pouring a few hundred hours a year and connecting to one another. Imagine that. Civil rights movement, women's right to vote movement, the labor, industrial movements, farmer movements, and that realization that it's never more than 1% As long as it reflects public opinion, you can turn around the corporate power, you can turn around the congressional power, you can turn around the state legislative power. And so it starts with small Congress watchdog groups, because Congress has huge power under the Constitution, and that's our power. Why do we give it away? And then have it be turned against us, where 1,500 or so corporations pretty much get what they want with a majority of Congress. They don't have any vote. We're the ones that have a vote. So we got to put down our cell phones, turn off the TV and the computer, and spend some time in the neighborhoods organizing. That's where the real power is. And then escalate it to the city or town, and then the state, and then the Congress. But I like the idea of a formal summons, because that basically is we the people summon our representatives in Congress, in whom we have given power that they have abused.
Right.
And to be held accountable in a town hall or wherever convenient location is for the town meetings. So that becomes a tradition.
So I think that there is a great deal of agreement between the right and the left, as you mentioned. However, there do seem to be some fundamental differences, or there seems to be some sort of apologism on both sides. So I notice among libertarians, for example, there seems to be some apologism for corporate power. And then also I think on the left, maybe there's some apologism for state power. So how do you really break through that? How do you get people together behind for true decentralization, working against both corporate power and state power simultaneously?
Well, first of all, you know that, excuse me, for 2,000 years, ruling groups have divided and ruled. That's the way they control people. And so they've divided us into conservative, liberal, red state, blue state, on issues that there is disagreement, like reproductive rights, school prayer, gun control. But they never point out the areas where we're in agreement, because they can't raise money on that. They raise money by representing one or two viewpoints, but not the alliance. So what we have to do is begin to spend more time on our civic duties. That is, more people should run for office, local office. More people should get civic training courses in schools or after school for the next generation. But the key is to emphasize where we agree, and then you have an unstoppable political force, because where we agree gets us up to 70% or more public opinion. That's unstoppable. And so you consciously get over the differences, what I call the yuck factor. How can I deal with this right-wing person? He's against reproductive rights or something. You say, okay, we're going to disagree on these, but this is where we're going to agree, and we're getting down to where people live, work, and raise their families. The ideologies begin dissipating. The abstract ideologies begin dissipating, because do conservative families want their kids to breathe clean air, drink clean water, eat safe food, have safe medicines? Of course. You think they're going to have an ideological attack on the FDA that tries to do that? You always bring it down to where people live, work, and raise their family. You get a commonality of interests that is not abstract and ideological. It's very, very practical.
Something else that I noticed that you brought up as a point of agreement is reining in the Federal Reserve. Why is that important?
Well, first, it's not accountable to Congress. It's accountable to the banks who fund it. It's not funded by taxpayer money. It's funded by the banks. Excuse me. They get what they pay for. That's one. Two, they have huge unspecified powers that I don't think are fully authorized. So, and you're expanding and expanding. I mean, they bailed out the Mexican oligarchs, for example, so that they can almost define the extent of their power, and that simply is not part of a democratic society.
So my final question, just about our current political climate. Donald Trump is president now. The Democratic Party seems to largely believe that Russia had a hand in our election, that they hacked the election, that Donald Trump may have some secret relationship with Vladimir Putin. At the same time, you recently had Trump bombing Syria, a Russian ally. You also have this rhetoric against North Korea. and other instances of things that are happening in Yemen and whatnot. So the geopolitical climate, it really seems to be like we could be heading towards war, and that the left and the right, or the Republicans and the Democrats, even though they kind of have this illusion of being against each other, they may have these folks backing war, all following the same war drum. So I guess my first question would be, do you think that Russia did have an influence in the election? And what do you think of Donald Trump as a president and his foreign policy?
Well, first, we're the teachers. We've overthrown over 50 governments since World War II, the CIA and other operatives. Second, we interfere in all kinds of elections. We interfered in the Russian election. We interfered in the Ukraine election. We interfere in Middle East government elections. So it's sort of strange for us to be so upset, right? Now, they did hack into various systems, Russian-sourced hackers, but I have no evidence yet that they affected the outcome of the election. And we'll see what the House and Senate investigative committees come up with. But I see no effect. How would they affect the House and how would they affect the presidential election? Trump was, blasting off lies and exaggerations and fantasies. It wasn't like they added to it. So we'll see what the investigations come up with. I think it's the usual quest by the Democratic Party when they lose an election, is to scapegoat. And they scapegoat the Green Party in 2000. They love to find a scapegoat because they don't want to change themselves and get new leaders. No, it's Nancy Pelosi, four-time loser, keeps getting elected by her peers in the House as head of the Democrats in the House. So they're always looking for scapegoats instead of looking at themselves in the mirror and say, how come we cannot landslide the worst, ugliest, most vicious, cruel, stupid, warlike Republican Party in its history, indentured to the hilt to Wall Street interests and oil and gas interests? Why can't they landslide them? Because they're dialing for the same dollars. They're dialing for the same commercial dollars. They don't have any new energy in them, and they can't stand competition from the left, which is why they always slam the Green Party, because they instead of taking the issues, which are popular issues like full Medicare for all and higher minimum wage, they should have taken those issues from the Green Party. But they are a decadent party, and as far back as 1980, Robert Reich wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post and started with the words, "The Democratic Party is dead, dead, dead."
Well, Mr. Nader, again, I know we're out of time. Just by the way, I'm about to stop by the Tort Law Museum that you'd opened up here in Winston, Connecticut. Okay. What would I see there if I go there?
You see the great tool that wrongfully injured people have to hold their perpetrators, whether it's a corporation selling defective products or assault and battery in the streets, accountable in a court of law before a trial by a jury, their peers. You see all kinds of exhibits, you see cars, you see dangerous industrial equipment, you see toxic waste, you see all this in very graphic detail. And that's why people are transformed when they come into it. They may come into it programmed by Aetna and other insurance assaulters on the civil justice system. But they really change when they're in it. They see the tobacco litigation portrayed, the asbestos litigation portrayed, and then they come out saying, gee, we really can fight back here. We don't have to take these wrongful injuries, whether it's medical malpractice, flammable fabrics, VWs, noxious emissions, illegal, and all the things we read about in the newspapers. It's the only law museum in the world of any kind, happens to be in Winston, Connecticut. tortmuseum.org. You're welcome. It's open every day except Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Nader, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time. This has been an honor, again, especially on Earth Day. I couldn't have hoped for more, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your initiative.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you did enjoy this interview, please do subscribe to Primo NUTMEG on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Also, check out our new website, primonutmeg.com. There you'll see links to previous interviews with the likes of Jill Stein, Noam Chomsky, John McAfee, Adam Kokesh, Kevin Carson, Medea Benjamin, and many, many other interesting people. Thanks for listening, and this is Steve saying until next time.